Okay, so this is one of those posts I never thought I'd be writing, but here we are. I'm 34M, and I've been married to Lana, 32F, for 6 years. No kids, just two people who were, or so I thought, solid as a rock. We both work, and I've always considered myself a pretty laid-back guy. We've had the normal ups and downs, but nothing that ever made me question the marriage, until recently. Lana started taking Ubers a lot about 8 months ago. She'd complain about traffic, parking, the usual, and it made sense for her to use the service, especially since we're in a busy city. Plus, I was working long hours at the time, so if it made her life easier, who was I to argue? She had this one driver though, Mike, 40SM, who seemed to always be around. At first I thought nothing of it, why would I? We're all about convenience, right? But I started noticing that she was always in a better mood after her rides with him. She'd get home smiling, laughing at something on her phone, or mentioning random stories he told her. I should have seen it then, but man, I was just too trusting. I mean, there's no way you'd think your wife is getting that close to a random Uber driver, right? Fast forward a few months, and things took a turn. Lana was still using Uber regularly, but her trips started to become more frequent and longer. It was odd. She'd come home late sometimes, saying she was out with friends, but I never met any of these friends. I'd ask for a few details, but she'd deflect, giving me vague answers that felt rehearsed. Just hanging out, she'd say with that little smile that was starting to make me uneasy. Then one night, I got a notification on my phone. A random text popped up with a name I didn't recognize. "Hey, can't wait to see you tomorrow." I glanced at Lana, who was in the bathroom, and my gut dropped. I asked her about it, and she practically flew off the handle. "It's just a coworker. Don't be paranoid," she screamed, her voice rising, the hysteria bubbling just below the surface. I backed off, because who wants to deal with that? But the seed of doubt had been planted. The next week, she came home late again, this time saying her phone had died, so she couldn't call. I thought it was weird, but I didn't want to start an argument. I wanted to trust her. But that night, I couldn't shake the feeling something was off. I found myself scrolling through her social media, looking for clues, and that's when I saw a post. A picture of Lana with a bunch of people, and right there in the corner was Mike. My heart sank. They were laughing, leaning in close together, and it struck me, this wasn't just a driver anymore. I decided to take a different approach. I started pretending everything was fine, all while planning to dig deeper. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a downward spiral that would shatter everything I thought I knew. I became a silent detective, piecing together a puzzle that I desperately wished didn't exist. I started keeping track of her rides, checking her Uber history whenever I got the chance. Each time I saw Mike's name pop up, it sent a chill down my spine. I even began timing her trips, noting how long they were and when they occurred. It was obsessive, but I needed to know if my suspicions were valid. One Saturday, I decided to follow her. She was getting ready, acting as if nothing was wrong, slipping into a tight dress that I'd never seen before. "Going out with friends," she said, winking at me. But I knew better. I grabbed my jacket and slipped out the door, tailing her discreetly. I watched as she got into an Uber, and my heart raced as I followed behind, maintaining a safe distance. The car pulled up outside a bar, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. I parked a block away and waited, trying to calm myself down. After what felt like an eternity, she emerged from the bar, and I nearly lost my breath. Mike was there, waiting for her, leaning casually against the car. They exchanged playful banter, and my blood boiled when I saw her lean in and kiss his cheek. My mind was racing, trying to process what I was witnessing. I watched as they drove off into the night, and I felt sick. This wasn't just a friendship, it was something much more intimate. I couldn't just sit idly by any longer. I had to confront her, but I needed to gather more evidence first. This wasn't going to end well, and I was bracing myself for the storm that was about to hit. That night I barely slept. I replayed the message over and over in my mind, trying to decide what to do next. The idea of confronting Lana filled me with dread, but I knew I couldn't let this go any longer. I needed answers. When she came home the next day, I felt a mix of anger and heartbreak brewing inside me. She was bubbly, chatting about her day as if nothing was wrong. I took a deep breath and finally blurted out, "I know about Mike." Her expression shifted instantly. The smile faded, replaced by a look of cold disbelief. "What are you talking about?" she snapped, but her voice had that shaky edge that told me she was lying. "Don't play games with me, Lana. I know you've been seeing him outside of your rides. I've seen the messages, and I followed you. You kissed him." I watched her face as the reality of my words sank in. For a moment, she looked genuinely panicked. "You followed me? Are you insane?" she shrieked, her voice rising. "This is so over the top, and you're making a huge mistake." I stood my ground. "A mistake? What about lying to me for months? Spending time with him when you should be with your husband? What the hell, Lana?" She went from defensive to hysterical in seconds. "I didn't mean for it to happen. You were always working, and Mike, he's just so easy to talk to." Her words tumbled out in a frantic rush. "You're always busy, and I felt so alone." I shook my head, incredulous. "So that makes it okay to cheat? To betray me?" She rolled her eyes, a trademark gesture I used to find annoying but now felt infuriating. "You don't understand. It was just a fling, a little fun. You're overreacting." That was it. My heart was breaking, but I felt a surge of clarity. This wasn't going to end with just a heated argument. I was done. "You've made your choice, Lana. I can't live like this. I'm filing for divorce." Her face turned pale, and for a split second, I saw something genuine flicker in her eyes, a mix of regret and panic. But it was too late. I turned away, my heart pounding, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The days that followed were a blur of anger, sadness, and disbelief. Lana's initial reaction was to lash out, calling me dramatic and claiming I was overreacting. But as the reality of my decision sank in, her tone shifted. She went from angry to pleading, begging me to reconsider, to give us another chance. "Can't we just talk about this? I'll end things with Mike," she cried one night, tears streaming down her face. But I felt nothing but a deep, aching void. Her words were hollow to me now, and I couldn't trust a single one. I started making plans. I reached out to a lawyer and began gathering my documents. The thought of our shared life, our memories, our dreams, slipped away like sand through my fingers. I moved into the guest room to give us both space, and the silence felt heavy. Lana tried to fill the quiet with frantic apologies and promises, but I remained steadfast. I'd never felt so alone, even with her in the same house. I found myself losing weight and sleeping poorly, haunted by images of her with Mike. Then came the unexpected twist. One evening, as I sat in the living room going over paperwork, my phone buzzed with a new message from that unknown number again. This time it read, "You need to know the truth. She's still seeing him." My heart raced. Could this be someone trying to help? I felt a surge of determination. I texted back, asking for details, but the number went silent. I knew I had to find out for myself. I grabbed my keys and headed out, driving to the bar where I had seen them before. When I arrived, I felt a mix of dread and anticipation. I stepped inside and scanned the room. My gut twisted when I spotted them in a corner booth, laughing together, clearly too comfortable in each other's company. I watched, heart pounding, as Lana leaned in close to Mike, her hand resting on his thigh. Rage surged through me, fueling my resolve. I couldn't let this continue. This was my last chance to confront her in the worst possible way. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, and headed toward the booth, ready to confront them both. As I approached the booth, my heart hammered in my chest, each step feeling heavier than the last. Lana and Mike were completely engrossed in each other, laughing like they were the only two people in the room. I stopped just a few feet away, trying to steady my breathing and prepare for what I was about to do. "Lana!" I called out, my voice steady but laced with an edge that made her turn abruptly. The smile on her face faded, replaced by a look of shock. Mike looked up, and the amusement in his eyes quickly vanished as he realized who I was. "What the hell are you doing here?" Lana asked, a mix of anger and surprise coloring her tone. "I'm here to talk to you." "No," I said, forcing myself to keep my composure despite the fury bubbling beneath the surface. Mike tried to interject. "Maybe you should." I cut him off, my eyes locked on Lana. "No, this is between us. You owe me that much." She glanced nervously at Mike, who was watching the scene unfold, clearly uncomfortable. "Can we just go somewhere else?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "No. I'm not leaving without a real conversation." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on us. "I saw you two together. This isn't just a fling anymore. You're still seeing him. What more do you want to hide?" Her expression shifted again, and for a moment, I thought I saw genuine remorse flash across her face. "It's not what you think. We were just... Just what?" I interrupted, feeling the anger boiling over. "Just having fun while I was at home, wondering what I did wrong. You think I don't deserve the truth?" Mike shifted uncomfortably in his seat, looking between us, and I could see he was ready to bolt. "Maybe I should go," he said, trying to diffuse the tension. "No! Stay!" I shot back, locking eyes with Lana again. "I want you both to hear this. I'm done. This is over. I'm filing for divorce, and there's nothing you can say to change my mind." Lana's face paled, and her voice trembled as she finally dropped the facade. "You can't be serious. After everything we've been through? You're just going to throw it all away?" I felt a pang of sadness but stood firm. "You made your choices, and now I'm making mine. I deserve better than this." In that moment, I could see her mask cracking. The hysterical laughter, the charming facade, it all fell away. "You don't understand. I was lonely. You never paid attention to me," she yelled, her voice breaking. "That doesn't justify cheating." I shot back, feeling a mix of anger and pity. The truth was out now, and it was raw and painful. The bar felt like it was closing in on us, and I turned to leave, not wanting to witness the fallout any longer. But just as I reached the door, I heard her voice behind me, desperate and hysterical. "Please! Don't do this!" But I didn't turn back. I stepped into the night, knowing that I had finally broken free, even if it meant facing the uncertainty of what came next. The next few days felt surreal. I didn't want to go home, so I stayed with a friend, crashing on their couch. The anger and betrayal weighed heavily on my chest, but at least I was away from the chaos that had become my life. My friend listened patiently as I poured out my heart, recounting the confrontation at the bar. They offered me support, but deep down, I knew I had to face Lana again soon. When I finally returned home, the atmosphere felt suffocating. I could sense her presence, but I avoided her like the plague. She had been calling and texting, each message growing more frantic. I refused to engage, still reeling from the realization that the woman I loved had betrayed me so profoundly. That evening, as I sat in the living room, I heard her footsteps approaching. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice softer, almost defeated. I glanced at her, taking in the sight of the woman I once adored, now a stranger. "What's there to say, Lana?" I replied, my tone icy. "You've made your choices." "I know," she said, her voice cracking. "But I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. It was a mistake, a stupid, reckless mistake. A mistake that you kept repeating." I shot back. "How many times did you meet him while I was at work? How many times did you lie to my face?" Her eyes filled with tears, but I felt nothing. "It was never supposed to go this far. I was lonely, and Mike, he was there. I thought I could make it work with both of you." The betrayal stung like a fresh wound. "You thought wrong. You can't just throw your feelings around like that and expect me to accept it. I'll end things with him. I swear. Just give me another chance," she pleaded, desperation spilling from her voice. I felt a mixture of anger and pity. You can't fix this, Lana. I'm already done. She slumped against the wall, her bravado crumbling. I don't want a divorce, she whispered, her face pale. I love you. The words echoed hollowly in my ears. Love? You don't even know what that means anymore. I walked past her, feeling a surge of resolve. I had to file the papers. There was no turning back now. As I moved toward the front door, she called out, You're making a huge mistake. You'll regret this. I paused, looking back at her, heart heavy but firm. No, Lana. You made the mistake. I'm just cleaning up the mess. I stepped out into the night, the cool air hitting my face like a breath of fresh freedom. It was time to reclaim my life, even if the road ahead felt uncertain and painful. Filing for divorce felt like stepping into a storm, each day bringing a new wave of emotions. I retained a lawyer and started gathering all the necessary documents. I spent hours poring over our finances, shared assets, and the life we built together, all while fighting the urge to drown in memories. Lana continued to text and call, her messages oscillating between anger, sorrow, and desperate pleas for reconciliation. I blocked her number, knowing that any interaction would only stir up old feelings and confusion. I was determined to keep my distance, focusing instead on the practicalities of ending our marriage. One afternoon, while sitting in my lawyer's office, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. The reality of what I was doing settled heavily on my shoulders. I never imagined I'd be in this position, and it felt surreal to think that just a few months ago, everything seemed normal. I glanced around the office, the sterile environment a stark contrast to the chaos in my heart. As we went through the paperwork, my lawyer looked up and said, It's understandable to feel overwhelmed, but remember why you're doing this. You deserve to be happy, free from betrayal. Her words resonated with me, igniting a flicker of strength. I had to keep moving forward. In the weeks that followed, I met with my lawyer multiple times, finalizing details and preparing for the inevitable negotiations with Lana. Each meeting felt like a step deeper into a painful reality, but I focused on the end goal, a fresh start. I returned home one evening to find a letter slipped under my door. My heart raced as I picked it up, recognizing Lana's handwriting. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Please don't do this. I miss you every day. I can't believe I let it get this far. I'll do anything to make it right. Just talk to me. I crumpled the letter in my fist, anger and sadness warring inside me. It felt like another manipulation, another attempt to pull at my heartstrings. I tossed it into the trash, determined to stick to my decision. The next day, I received a call from my lawyer. We may need to prepare for a court date, she said. Lana isn't backing down easily. I steeled myself for the fight ahead, reminding myself that I was doing this for my own peace of mind. The next time I saw Lana, it wouldn't just be about the past, it would be about reclaiming my future. As the court date loomed closer, I felt a growing mix of dread and anticipation. I spent hours preparing, going over every detail with my lawyer. She advised me to remain calm, but I could feel the tension building inside me. The thought of facing Lana in that setting, under the harsh scrutiny of a judge, was daunting. I started revisiting the memories of our relationship, both the good and the bad, and it felt like walking through a minefield. I tried to focus on the reasons I was filing for divorce, reminding myself that I was reclaiming my life. Still, the emotional weight was heavy, and it took everything in me to keep my resolve. On the morning of the court hearing, I felt a knot in my stomach. I dressed in a simple but professional outfit, trying to project confidence. As I made my way to the courthouse, I could feel the world around me blurring, my mind racing with thoughts of what might happen. When I arrived, I saw Lana in the waiting area. She looked different, anxious, pale, and drawn. For a moment my heart softened, but I quickly pushed that feeling away. She was the one who betrayed me. I had to remind myself of that. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, weighing my options. I didn't want to give her the chance to sway me, but a part of me longed for closure. "Fine. Just for a minute," I replied, my tone firm. We stepped aside, away from prying eyes. I know I messed up. She started, tears welling in her eyes. I never meant to hurt you. Please, just give me a chance to explain. Explain what, Lana? I shot back, frustration bubbling up. How you let it go this far? How you betrayed my trust? What's left to say? I thought I could fix it, she exclaimed, her voice cracking. I thought I could make it work, but I realize now how wrong I was. I've been lost without you. I don't want this divorce. Her desperation pierced through me, but I forced myself to stay strong. It's too late for that. You had your chance, and you threw it away. Her face twisted with anger and sadness. You're being stubborn. You're throwing everything away for one mistake. Not just one mistake, Lana. You made a choice, repeatedly. I can't be married to someone who doesn't respect our vows, I replied, feeling a sense of finality wash over me. She looked defeated, and I saw the realization hit her. I'm sorry, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I really am. I know you are. But I have to take care of myself now, I said, trying to maintain my composure. It's time for me to move on. As I walked away, I could feel the weight of the moment settling in. I had stood my ground, but the emotional fallout was still heavy. Today would be a turning point, one way or another. I took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. As the hearing began, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. The courtroom was stark and intimidating, and I could see Lana seated on the other side, her face a mask of apprehension. I was flanked by my lawyer, who gave me a reassuring nod, reminding me to stay focused. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. I glanced at Lana, who looked smaller and more vulnerable than I had ever seen her. But I reminded myself of everything she had done. This was about protecting myself and moving forward. The proceedings began with my lawyer presenting the facts, our shared assets, the timeline of our marriage, and the evidence of Lana's infidelity. Each word felt like a hammer striking against the fragile remnants of our relationship. I watched as Lana's expression shifted from defensive to pained, her facade cracking under the weight of the truth. When it was Lana's turn to speak, she stood up, visibly shaking. I acknowledge my mistakes, she began, her voice trembling. I hurt my husband, and I take full responsibility for my actions. But I want to say that I love him. I never wanted this divorce. The judge listened patiently, but I felt my heart harden at her words. Love? I thought bitterly. You didn't love me enough to be faithful. My lawyer interjected, presenting additional evidence of Lana's ongoing communication with Mike, and the judge seemed to take note. These actions clearly demonstrate a lack of commitment to the marriage, the judge remarked, glancing between us. Lana's composure began to slip further. But I was just confused. I thought I could have both. I didn't realize what I was losing until it was too late. Her voice rose, desperation creeping in. At that moment, something snapped within me. I stood up, feeling the need to speak my truth. Your Honor, I loved Lana deeply. I trusted her completely. But she chose to betray that trust. I can't live in a marriage built on lies. I'm here today to reclaim my life. The room fell silent as the weight of my words hung in the air. I felt a mix of fear and relief. It was the first time I truly expressed how I felt since everything imploded. Lana's eyes were filled with tears, and for a brief moment, I saw the flicker of the person I once loved. But I pushed that thought aside, reminding myself of the pain she caused. I was done feeling sorry for her. After what felt like an eternity, the judge called for a recess. As we stepped outside, I took a deep breath, trying to calm my racing heart. I knew the battle wasn't over yet, but I felt a surge of empowerment. This was my moment of truth, and I was finally taking control of my life. As we returned to the courtroom, I was ready to face whatever came next. I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was a survivor determined to reclaim my future. After a brief recess, we returned to the courtroom. The tension in the air was palpable, and I felt every eye in the room on us. I sat up straight, steeling myself for what was about to unfold. The judge took her seat and called us back to order. I've heard both sides and reviewed the evidence presented. It's clear that this marriage has encountered significant issues. The judge began, her voice firm. Infidelity is a serious breach of trust, and it appears that both parties have valid concerns regarding the future of this relationship. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the moment that would determine my future. The judge continued, while I understand the emotional complexity of this situation, it's my duty to make a ruling based on the facts. I am granting the divorce on the grounds of irreconcilable differences and infidelity. A wave of relief washed over me, but it was quickly replaced by a rush of mixed emotions. I glanced at Lana, whose face fell as the words registered. She looked shattered, and part of me felt a twinge of sympathy, but I reminded myself that this was about survival. The judge proceeded to address the division of our assets. I listened intently, nodding along as my lawyer laid out our agreements. I'd managed to protect myself financially, which felt like a small victory amidst the emotional chaos. As the session wrapped up, the judge looked directly at us. I urge both of you to take this time to heal and reflect on the lessons learned. Moving forward is crucial for both your well-beings. After the proceedings concluded, I stood outside the courtroom, taking a moment to breathe in the crisp air. The burden of uncertainty had lifted, but a new weight settled in its place. I was officially divorced, and the reality of it hit me harder than I expected. Lana stepped out a moment later, her eyes red and puffy. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, but part of me felt the need for closure. "Fine," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. We walked a short distance away from the courthouse, the sounds of the bustling city surrounding us. "I never wanted it to end like this," she said, her voice trembling. "I messed up so badly. I thought I could fix it." "You had your chances, Lana," I said, struggling to keep my tone steady. "You chose to betray me. You don't get to rewrite that narrative." "I know," she replied, tears streaming down her face. "But I still love you. I wish I could take it all back." The pain in her voice stirred something deep within me, but I quickly buried it. "Love isn't enough when trust is broken. You taught me that." We stood in silence, the weight of our past hanging heavily between us. Finally, I spoke. "I need to move on, Lana. For my own sake. I hope you find what you're looking for, but it won't be with me." As I turned to walk away, I felt a mix of sadness and liberation. This was the beginning of my new chapter, and I was finally ready to embrace it. I took a deep breath, the air feeling lighter as I stepped forward into the unknown. The days following the divorce were a whirlwind of emotions. I felt a strange mix of liberation and sadness. I had reclaimed my freedom, but the void left by Lana's absence was palpable. I spent my evenings reflecting, often lost in thought, replaying memories both good and bad. To distract myself, I threw myself into work. I focused on projects I had put on the back burner, pouring my energy into things that had once inspired me. My colleagues noticed the change in me. I was more focused and driven. It felt good to channel my feelings into something productive. One weekend, I decided to take a spontaneous trip to the coast. The ocean had always been a place of solace for me. As I stood on the sandy shore, waves crashing at my feet, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was free. The salty air filled my lungs, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hope stirring within me. Back home, I started exploring new hobbies, painting, hiking, even joining a local book club. It felt refreshing to discover new passions and meet new people. I began to embrace the idea that my life could be fulfilling on my own terms, without the shadow of my past relationship hanging over me. One evening at the book club, I met Sarah, a fellow book lover with a warm smile and an infectious laugh. We bonded over our favorite novels, and I found myself opening up to her about my recent experiences. She listened intently, offering support without pity. There was something comforting about her presence that drew me in. As we spent more time together, I realized how much I craved connection. Sarah was different from Lana, genuine and kind. She never made me feel like I had to compete for her attention. With her, I felt a sense of safety I hadn't felt in a long time. Slowly, the walls I had built around my heart began to crack. One night, while sitting in a cozy cafe, I found myself laughing freely with her, the warmth of connection igniting something I thought I had lost. "You know," she said, her eyes sparkling, "it's okay to let go of the past. You deserve happiness." Her words resonated deeply, and I realized I was ready to embrace a new chapter. Maybe this was what I needed, a fresh start without the baggage of my past weighing me down. As the weeks passed, Sarah and I grew closer, exploring the city together, sharing stories and dreams. I started to feel the stirrings of something new, something beautiful. It was tentative at first, but the idea of love began to blossom again in my heart. With Sarah, I found laughter and lightness, a welcome contrast to the heavy emotions that had once consumed me. I still had scars from my past, but I learned that healing was a journey, not a destination. And I was ready to embrace that journey, one step at a time. Just as I began to feel comfortable in my new life with Sarah, the past reared its head again. One evening, while scrolling through my phone, I received a message from an unknown number. My heart sank as I opened it and saw a familiar name, Mike. "Hey, I think we need to talk. It's important," the message read. Panic bubbled inside me. Why was he reaching out? Was Lana involved? I debated ignoring it, but curiosity gnawed at me. After a few hours of internal struggle, I replied, "What do you want?" He responded almost immediately. "Can we meet? It's about Lana." I felt a wave of emotions, anger, confusion, even a hint of sympathy. "Fine. Where?" I typed back, my fingers shaking. We agreed to meet at a nearby coffee shop. As I walked there, I felt the tension rising in my chest. What could he possibly say that would change anything? When I arrived, Mike was already seated at a corner table, looking more nervous than I had ever seen him. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever confrontation lay ahead. "Thanks for meeting me," he said, running a hand through his hair. "I know this is awkward. Let's skip the small talk." "What do you want?" I said, trying to keep my tone steady. He sighed, looking down at the table. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I know I played a part in all of this, and I'm sorry for how it affected you." I crossed my arms, feeling the anger simmering beneath the surface. "Sorry doesn't change what you did." "I know," he replied, meeting my gaze. "But that's not why I wanted to talk. It's about Lana." "What about her?" I snapped, my heart racing. "She's been struggling since the divorce." "She's a mess," he admitted, his voice filled with regret. "I thought you should know. She reached out to me recently, asking about you, about everything. She regrets what happened and wants to make amends." I felt a mix of disbelief and pity. Why should I care? She made her choices, and I'm done with that chapter of my life. I get it. But I think she's finally realizing what she lost. She wanted to reach out, but she's afraid you'll just shut her down," Mike said, his tone earnest. I leaned back, processing his words. Part of me felt vindicated hearing that she was struggling, but another part, a quieter, softer voice, felt the sting of empathy. "And why do you care?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. He looked uncomfortable. "Because I don't want to be the reason you two end up hating each other forever. I didn't mean to come between you. It was a mistake, and I regret it." I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the conversation. "You're right, it was a mistake. But I've moved on. I'm not interested in reopening that door." "I understand. I just thought, maybe she deserves a chance to apologize. For her own peace, you know?" The idea of Lana reaching out for closure stirred something inside me. But I wasn't ready to dive back into that emotional turmoil. "If she wants to talk to me, she can reach out herself. But I can't promise anything," I replied firmly. Mike nodded, understanding my stance. "That's fair. I just wanted to give you a heads up." As I left the coffee shop, I felt a whirlwind of emotions. The past had crept in, uninvited, and I was left wondering if I should grant Lana the chance to apologize, or if it was best to let sleeping dogs lie. Over the next few days, Mike's words echoed in my mind. Part of me felt vindicated, knowing that Lana was struggling, but another part wondered if maybe she deserved a chance to explain herself. I had been so focused on moving forward that I hadn't truly considered how closure might feel for both of us. I talked to Sarah about it one evening as we strolled through a local park, the sun setting behind us, casting a warm glow on everything. "I heard from Mike," I said, hesitating before continuing. "He mentioned that Lana wanted to reach out to apologize." Sarah raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "And how do you feel about that?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to tell her to shove it, but another part wonders if it might help both of us find some peace," I admitted, feeling the weight of my indecision. "Closure can be important, especially after a betrayal like that," she replied thoughtfully. "But it's also essential to protect your heart. If you think talking to her will only bring back pain, maybe it's best to keep moving forward." Her perspective made sense, but I felt an itch of curiosity. What if she genuinely regrets what she did? What if she's changed? People can change, but sometimes they just want to ease their own guilt, Sarah cautioned gently. "You have to consider what's best for you, not for her." As we walked, I mulled over my options. I thought about the years I had invested in my marriage and how much I had loved Lana. But I also recognized the pain and betrayal that came with that love. After a restless night, I decided to draft a message to Lana. I wanted to give her a chance to express herself, but with clear boundaries. "If you want to talk, I'm open to it, but it will be strictly about what happened. No excuses, just honesty," I wrote, my fingers trembling as I hit send. The waiting game began. Each time my phone buzzed, I felt a jolt of anxiety. What would she say? Would she try to manipulate the situation again? After a few hours, I finally received a response. "Thank you for giving me a chance to talk. I really need to explain everything. Can we meet?" I felt a swirl of emotions, nervousness, anticipation, even a hint of dread. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop the following afternoon, and as the time approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that this conversation could either bring closure or rehash old wounds. When I arrived at the coffee shop, I felt a familiar knot in my stomach. I spotted Lana seated in a corner, her expression tense and anxious. As I approached, I noticed how different she looked, her once vibrant energy now replaced by a sense of fragility. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice low. I nodded, steeling myself for what was to come. "Let's just get straight to it. You wanted to talk." "I know I heard you," she began, her voice trembling. "I never wanted to be that person, but I got lost in my own feelings. I thought I could juggle everything and ended up ruining everything instead." As she spoke, I felt the walls I had built slowly start to crack. Would this be the honesty I needed to hear? Or just another round of excuses? I prepared myself for either possibility, knowing that today was about finding my own closure, no matter what that looked like. Lana took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I've spent so much time thinking about my mistakes and the way I treated you. I took you for granted, and I realize now how deeply I hurt you." I remained silent, my heart racing. "Go on," I said, my voice steady. "I got caught up in my own insecurities and loneliness," she continued. "I thought Mike could fill a void that I didn't even understand. But all I did was push you away. I should have communicated with you, but I was afraid of being honest about my feelings." I watched her, searching for sincerity in her eyes. "You made a choice, Lana." "Multiple choices," I reminded her. "You could have come to me. We could have worked through things." "I know! And I hate myself for it," she replied, frustration creeping into her voice. "I was so selfish. I didn't think about how my actions would affect you. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I just want you to know how truly sorry I am." I took a moment to process her words. The vulnerability she displayed felt real, but I still had my guard up. "And what do you expect from me? Do you think saying sorry will fix everything?" No, I don't expect anything. I just needed to tell you the truth, she said earnestly. You deserve better than what I gave you. I've been working on myself since the divorce. I've gone to therapy, and I'm trying to understand my behavior and why I made those choices. I considered her words. Part of me felt the sting of anger and betrayal still fresh, while another part recognized that people could change. And what if I can't get past this? What if I don't want you back in my life at all? I would understand, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I just needed you to know that I regret everything. You were my greatest love, and I lost that because of my own actions. Her admission hit hard, and I felt a pang of empathy, but I quickly steeled my resolve. This isn't about rekindling anything. I've moved on, Lana. I'm building a new life without you. I'm with someone else now. The color drained from her face, and I could see the realization dawn on her. I didn't know. I'm truly sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. I believe that you're sorry. But sorry doesn't undo the past, I replied firmly. I'm glad you're working on yourself, but you need to understand that I need to protect my own heart now. This conversation is about closure for me, not about reopening old wounds. Lana nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. I get it. I just wanted you to know that I've been reflecting on my actions and how they've impacted you. You deserve happiness, and I wish you nothing but the best. For a moment, we sat in silence, the weight of our past hanging heavily between us. I felt a strange sense of release wash over me. This wasn't about reconciliation, it was about letting go. Thank you for being honest, I said finally. I needed to hear this. It helps to know that you're taking responsibility for your actions. I'll always care about you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I hope you find the happiness you deserve. As we parted ways, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. I had confronted my past and emerged stronger. While Lana's words stirred old feelings, they also solidified my resolve to move forward. I was finally closing that chapter of my life, ready to embrace the new one I was building with Sarah and the promise of brighter days ahead. Stepping out into the bustling street, I took a deep breath, feeling lighter than I had in months. I had faced my demons and emerged victorious. Now, it was time to look ahead and embrace the possibilities waiting for me.